everyone. In just a couple of seconds, I will be introducing Tristan Donovan. And Tristan is the author of this book. It's all a game. The history of board games from Monopoly to the Settlers of Catan. And this is his fourth book, but I love this book. It was so amazing. I mean, I had been playing board games since I can remember, from Chutes and Ladders and Candyland, and then all the way through until were old enough to play Monopoly and understand it. I remember watching my cousins play Monopoly, and I couldn't wait until I understood how to play Monopoly. But in the meantime, we were playing Sorry and Trouble and Parcheesi and, everything. Clue. I mean, I love nothing better than to get a board game for Christmas. So, and I had lots of cousins to play with too. And sometimes I just played with my brother. But board games are so much fun. And I'm kind of sad because my children really didn't get to experience them like we did. I mean, they have the video games, but there's just something about a board game, right? There's just something about sitting down across from somebody and playing a board game. So anyway, I can't wait to talk to Tristan about this. I will be talking to you after the interview. And so here's Tristan. Hi everyone. Today I am so excited to be speaking with author Tristan Donovan, and look at his new book, which I'm so happy that I got a copy of. And it's called It's All a Game. And it is the history of board games, starting from the very beginning, even before Monopoly, but it says Monopoly on here, but even before Monopoly, all the way to the present. And oh my gosh, you know what, Tristan? I reached out to you because this was my childhood. I'm 53. I grew up in the 60s and 70s. And from reading this book, I realized what a huge part, why it was such a huge part of my life. And you're young, okay?
Not that young. I still remember lots of board games.
You did. So is that what, tell me what got you interested in board games?
Well, it'd been something my family always played. So, it was a typical sort of Sunday night after dinner thing where we'd get out the Monopoly set or Life, something like that, and play a board game for the evening, which, I mean, usually sort of, once my sister got a bit older and joined in, it usually ended with her getting fed up and kind of flipping the Monopoly board over. But that was kind of usually how it worked. Yeah, so we used to play those sort of every Sunday, and so it's always sort of been there. And, and it continues now. I still go to a little board game club in the town I live in, so it's still stuck with me. I'm not giving it up.
Well, I tell you what, I kind of want to go find one. So, I mean, you know what? I play Mahjong. I do. I know some people that play Mahjong, and so that's that is something that people still have held on to. And I guess you would consider it a board game. I mean, it is a game on a board, but these board games, these classic board games, there's just something about them. And I love the way you told the history, because it wasn't just about the history of the board game, but you were giving the history of what was going on in the world at the time that the board games were invented. And I had no idea. None. I don't think anybody does. But, I love that it wasn't just like, okay, well, this game was invented at this time. It was like, no, this is what was going on, and then this is how it came about. I mean, the research you did for this was brilliant.
Okay. That's part of the thing that got me really excited about doing it, because you kind of think, well, it's just a game. It's just, something people play. It's just some childhood distraction. And then you kind of go into the history, and then you find out, like, well, Monopoly was actually a protest game against landlords and land ownership, and, and how life kind of referenced things like the uranium rush that there was in the US in the 1950s, when there was government incentives to go hunt uranium in Utah and places like that. So, there's all these interesting stories hidden beneath the board that we're not really aware of when we play, which I find really fascinating.
Yeah, and okay, so usually when I read a book, I do one side note, right? Now, I have 5 pages of notes from this book, okay? And this is what I would do. I'd read a chapter, I'd take notes. Then I'd go on YouTube and watch a video on the playing of, or, like something about it, because some of these games I wasn't as aware. And, when you hear something interesting is, like, I really just learned chess. Like, very recently, within the last 5 years. And for some reason, chess went right past my family. We went right to checkers. I don't know. It was like, but so it was really, really fun to read about how chess evolved because it wasn't a simple evolution of chess.
No, I mean, it started, as far as we know, the records, I mean, we're talking like 400 AD kind of time when it started, but it was in India, a gambling game for four players. It's hard to think of anything that sounds less like chess, but it had little armies, and you're supposed to form alliances with another player and fight the other two armies, and then fight each other. So, it sounded almost more like Risk with some gambling thrown in. But then it started this sort of epic journey west where it just kind of kept changing. So in India, all different religions went, well, we don't approve of gambling. So they got rid of the gambling and then got rid of having four players. And so it became a bit more like chess, went to Persia and they kind of changed it around, added their own sort of things. I mean, they didn't have, it was a ship originally instead of a rook. So in Persia, they didn't really have a navy, so they got rid of the ships and went to the rook. In it, then it went to Arabia, where it turned, Islam had an effect on it, and so we went from these literal kind of little pieces to these very sort of abstract ones that we have today. And then Europe goes, well, this game's a bit slow. Let's add in a queen that's really powerful and makes the game really fast. So, it's had these changes, and this is hundreds of years of people doing all kinds of different versions of it to end up with a game that we know as chess today. But it's very different from when it began hundreds of years ago.
Right. Do you enjoy chess?
I love chess. I grew up playing it. I mean, I'm kind of envious of you because you just learned it. It's like, oh wow, what would it be like now to learn chess? How great it is. It's sort of like now it's like, oh well, I don't get to play chess because everyone's like, yeah, play chess. But it's like it's a fantastic game. There's a reason why it's kind of held on so long.
Yeah, I definitely think that. And you know what? I played it because my son wanted to learn. And so I went and bought a very cheap chess set. And I sat there with the instructions and I'm like, okay, wait, can you do that? Can you do that? And I'm like reading and there's a lot of rules. And, we started to play more and more. And the more I did it, the more I enjoyed it. So I do understand that the more you learn with that game, like I can see why it's a never ending learning thing, and why people are just, there are chess clubs, there's chess it's a huge thing.
Yeah, and it just keeps continuing. I mean, it's just such a. I mean, you could spend your whole life learning chess and still never master it completely. I mean, it is so much depth to that game, so much time you could spend on it, and so much written about it as well. It's a slightly daunting game. When I was doing research, I thought, I'll see what books there are on the history of chess, and it was like, okay, this could take a while to read.
You're like, okay, I need to condense this down because this is only one of my chapters, and so it's a way different.
Yeah, exactly. It could easily be several books.
Yeah, it could be exactly. It could be several books, and when Bobby Fischer, when that movie came out, that also brought it back. That people were like, the people who didn't know who he was, that kind of had a little bit of a resurgence too for kids, even. I think.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those games that keeps having kind of revivals every so often. Something happens, whether it's Boris Smansky or versus I suppose Deep Blue. Gary Kasparov fighting Deep Blue back in the late '90s. Like now it's kind of man versus machine in chess. It's this game that sort of keeps coming back because it's so entrenched. I think in the way we think, and there's and sort of words like check and checkmate are kind of used outside of the context of chess, so it's kind of in our language too.
Yeah, and you know what? I can understand why people spend a lot of money on chess sets because as it became more, that I paid attention more and we're looking at them, I was like, this is like you can put this on your coffee table. They're beautiful. The chess sets you can find nowadays, and I was like, I would definitely become that if I had the time. I could definitely get. that into it. But okay, we have lots of games to talk about, so we'll move on. Okay, Backgammon, another one. I was like, I only knew how to play that very basic, so I read your chapter, I went back and I watched some videos on it because I wanted to see people playing it. And I was like, oh, that did not hit my childhood enough. I could have really enjoyed Backgammon more.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's got this image problem, Backgammon. I never played it. I always had a Backgammon set. It was always like on the back of the
Right,
checkerboard,
on
kind
the
of
back.
lurking around. Sort of Backgammon was just kind of lurking. It's like, do you want to play me? It's like, no, you look weird. You've got triangles all over
I don't
you.
know
You
what
don't
to
have
do.
squares. It's like something like that. But it's actually a fantastic game. It's like this really delicate balance of skill and luck, and it's really good fun. And I mean, it's got really interesting story. I mean, unlike chess, it's not really kind of had many revivals that keep bringing it back. It kind of started fading at the end of the 19th century.
But yeah, I did when I was watching them play Backgammon on the video. I did become intrigued, and I started to look around to see if I had one, but I don't, because like you said, sometimes they would be in something, like on the back of like your chessboard or your checkerboard or something, when they'd have all those all-in-one game sets or something. But I actually didn't have one, but I was a little bit more intrigued by it for sure. I mean, you got my interest up, especially the history of it and the fact that it has been around an extremely long time, and for all over the world.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of predates the Roman Empire. I mean, one of the things I found really fascinating is it had this big revival in the 1970s. I mean, it'd been struggling for decades by that point. And then all of a sudden, all these jet set playboys started going, we're going to get into backgammon and gamble huge amounts of money, and ended up with people like Mick Jagger and Tina Turner and Ringo Starr hanging around the backgammon scene, which, now it's like this kind of fusty kind of board game that no one plays. It's like all these, it's basically a who's who of the 70s was kind of hanging around in backgammon, sort of dens and kind of going, oh, I'm going to put down $64,000. It's like in the 70s, that's like $250,000 on one game. Backgammon, it's like, you're crazy. But, it's got an interesting story, and it's kind of one of those games that it's a shame it's not played more. I think it's a really good game. I'm really glad I discovered it during the book, because it's, like many people, it's like a game that just lurked there, and it's like, oh, never get played out, I don't even know what it's about.
I know. I am actually thinking if I find one, I'm going to get it and get my younger son, who's always up for something, and be like, come on, let's just quick play. I just want to see, how to do this. But because of watching the videos, I was like, oh, I don't know why I thought it would be complicated. But I think because of the way the board is, I thought that it was very complicated movement wise. But then as I watched it, I was like, oh, it's not that complicated. I can do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just basically the triangles just like squares. I think they just redesigned how it looked. Everyone go, and that looks really simple, and it is.
Yeah, it isn't that difficult. Okay, then, and you did this in order, which I appreciated the history in order, because I would not have thought, if you would have asked me, like the Game of Life, I did not put it back this far. The beginning,
Yeah.
like I thought this was like a 60s game. I had no idea it went back to the 1800s.
Yeah, so 1860 it goes all the way back to. So it's actually the man Milton Bradley. Not so if you back in the 60s and 70s, obviously Milton Bradley was a huge board game company, but there was an actual Milton Bradley, and that was his first game. He called it the Checkered Game of Life, and it's very different to the one we know today. I mean, it actually looked like a chessboard, and the idea was to reach a happy old age by doing good deeds and avoiding doing dastardly things like being greedy. And it was a very kind of puritanical message, which a lot of the American board games at that time did have behind them. But 1961 they did it as a sort of 100-year anniversary of the company. And that's the one that really everything we know about life today is based on. It's really this kind of who can get to the mansion first, who can have the most money.
Yeah, and you know what? I kind of blame life on my life now, because I played life. Okay, I have a younger brother. He's a year younger than me, and I made it like he had to play it with me. All right, there were just no options, or I was going to beat him up. Like it was like he had to play. And no, but this was my goal, was to fill those little cars with as many children as I could possibly land on. And I have 6 children, and I blame life, because it was those little cars, and it was like, okay, you got twins. I'd be like, yes, I have twins, and I'd get one another, and I would have like a trail of cars, and my only goal was to land on the ones that gave me babies. So I must have been a very strange child. That's all I can say.
Well, I mean, the guy who made it was actually telling me sort of he's heart because he's quite old now, so he had heart surgery a few years ago, and he was saying the actual heart surgeon told him the reason I became a doctor was because I played Game of Life as a kid, and whenever I became the doctor, I always won the game, so I should become the doctor.
See, so that game really, I mean, it's crazy because I would be like, you graduated from college, and I'm like, I don't want to graduate. I need more children in this car. How do I get more children? I would lay them sideways, and it ended up being what I'm doing. So that's crazy. But anyway, okay. Oh yeah, quick tell the Lincoln story. I have that like circled in big. For
yeah. Yeah, so Milton Bradley, the reason why he made a board game was actually due to Abraham Lincoln. So he was actually a printer, had a little printing press up in Springfield, Massachusetts, and he started doing really good business making prints of Abraham Lincoln during the run up to his election as president. And at the time, Abraham Lincoln had no beard. And then a girl called Grace Meadow wrote to him and said, "You'll look so much better with whiskers." And Lincoln was like, I'm not sure, but in the end, kind of grew the famous beard that we all can't imagine him without at this point. And of course, he was selling all these portraits about a printed about. And of course, word spread that Abraham Lincoln's got a beard. And so everyone started coming back going, "This isn't Abraham Lincoln, he's got no beard." So basically, big boom business suddenly collapsed. He had to kind of throw all his portraits away and burn them in his backyard. And he was like, I'm bust. I've got to find something quick. And the checkered game of life was his solution to that. His business was going to crumble because of that beard.
That's crazy. I love that story. That was like one of my favorite ones, especially when you can find somebody famous like that. It just brings it into making, he thought that he was going to go bust, and what does he end up doing? Something that's going to last like way longer than pictures of, these little pictures of Lincoln. So I love that story. That was amazing. Okay, so we get to now we're in the 1900s finally. So we get through and we get to Monopoly. And Monopoly has a great story, which I want to hear about, with Elizabeth, and I don't know how you say her last name, Maggie or Maggie?
I think it's Maggie.
Okay.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
That's how I'm going to say it.
Right, and she ended up, creating this game, like you said, to understand landowners and railroads and understand taxes and all this stuff, but people stole it from her, but then they had to go back to her. They stole the idea, I guess, right?
Yeah, so at that time, I guess, there was a tradition in games of, a bit like with chess, they were almost like folk music, oh, well, I'll just copy that game and make my own version. I don't like that rule, I'll change it. So she made this game, and originally it was called the Landlord's Game. And she gave it didn't do very well, and she self-published it, gave it to a few people, forgot about it because no one bought it. And these people started copying it, and other people copied them, and then they changed the rules, and then they forgot all the rules that were supposed to say how bad landlords were, and, and he was like, oh, now it's just, making lots of money and making everyone else bankrupt. It's really cool. And it kind of just kept going that until eventually it ended up in the hands of Charles Darrow, who lived in Philadelphia. And this was during the Great Depression, and he was penniless, had a disabled child he needed to look after, and decided, this is a good game. I'm going to package it up and I'm going to sell it. He didn't know who really owned it. I mean, no one really knew. So he basically sold it to Parker Brothers, who then tuned a sort of legal checks, kind of found out, oh, this isn't really your game, is it? And so we had to go back to Elizabeth McGee, pay her a bit of money, and offer to republish her Landlord's Game to get the rights to it. They did republish the Landlord's Game. It didn't do very well. I think most of them got pulped in the end. So for her, it wasn't very successful.
Right, and when you're playing it as a kid in the 70s, you don't really understand. I never understood like the railroad thing. I never understood utilities, but you didn't really care because you just wanted to win the game, and you didn't really care like what you had to do to win. But it was really interesting to read in your book how those came about and what she was trying to do. So we don't have to tell the whole story because everybody needs to get your book to read it. But you really do explain it. Even now, I was like, oh yeah, because I haven't played Monopoly in forever, and so I hadn't really thought about it. And they've updated it. I don't even know. Can you get an original Monopoly right now?
You may do. There's a company called Winning Moves which republishes sort of traditional versions of popular games. So they do the original 1960 version of Game of Life, for example. So they may publish the tradition, the really early
Yeah, like
version of Monopoly, but without the speed dice and things like that it has these days.
right, and back to the original cards and the original money that the '70s game had. I remember seeing at one point, like Star Wars Monopoly or something. They have all kinds of crazy Monopoly games
I
now.
think there's
But
My Little Pony Monopoly. I mean, Simpsons Monopoly. I mean,
Simpson-
you name it, there's a Monopoly.
right, but the concept, and it's interesting because you put this in your book. Your biggest complaint, like if somebody said, what game do you want to play, and somebody says Monopoly, you're like, okay, we only have 2 hours. I mean, that was like a commitment. Okay, I remember playing, especially as like an older a child. That would be a game you'd play past midnight if you had to. You'd have to be begging people to. If you were still in, you'd be like, "Don't fold, come on, let's go. We can do this."
It's like my dad was like that. So my dad was always seemed to win Monopoly, and he was always a banker. I always think there was a bit of money kind of being slipped in on the side, but he always won. But it always gets to that stage where it's like me and him. I'm clearly going to go bankrupt. It's just a matter of time. And I'd be like, it's not over until it's over. And so you go around and it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to go bankrupt. No, I'm missed it and I've gone past go, damn it. I've got to keep going around. So it got really frustrating. But that's partly because we were playing it wrong. We did things like put the money in the centre for free
And I did
parking,
that.
no
Yes.
negotiations, auctions, on when you land on a square. We didn't do that stuff. So that just really extends the game out and makes it more painful.
Right, and that is, I was thinking the same thing when I saw that in your book. I was like, oh, we were playing it wrong, so that extended it a couple more hours. Then you could have gone bankrupt a lot quicker if you didn't play our rules.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so then we come to one of my all-time favorite games, was Clue. That was like, and then they made a movie out of it. I mean, and for somebody my age, like I said, 53, so Clue came out, which I didn't really think about. Okay, so the height of its success was 75, so I was in 5th grade. I mean, I remember that game was intense. I mean, we would play and play and play that game because so different from what was out there. Like trying to figure out, who the murderer was, with what, in what room. I mean, it really fulfilled all of your gaming needs, It was a great game.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like a great game. And it also sort of just, I mean, in some ways, it was also based on those Agatha Christie type novels or those sort of English country house murder kind of books. But actually, it's kind of the best representation of all those stereotypes. It's much better than any of the books. You go to the books, it's like, well, it's kind of like that, but Cluedo is that stereotype kind of brought to life. It's a great little game.
Yeah, and it's kind of figuring out a puzzle. I don't know. It really, for me, I thought it was definitely one of my favorite games. And then I read that you put in 2016 they killed off Mrs. White. She doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, that's like I think that was like literally about a couple of weeks before I had to hand the manuscript in. So this press release comes out from Hasbro going, "We're killing Mrs. White." It's like, no, not now. Just about to finish the book.
Yeah, that's just a crazy, crazy thing. So, and we're hitting, okay, so we're now in the 70s. Like you said, it was, the height of game playing and Scrabble. That has a great chapter. I loved your chapter on Scrabble because on my phone, my number one game is Words with Friends, which is Scrabble.
Yeah.
So, how can you make that up? I mean, it's to this day. Scrabble is never ending. I mean, everybody loves it. And now, especially since you can have it, on your phone. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's again one of those sort of classic games, and I think it's also one that works well as an adult as well. I think something like Life, it's kind of a bit repetitive when you're an adult, whereas when you're younger, it's kind of fine. But Scrabble, it's like it doesn't matter if you're young or old, it still works.
Right. So we get to the plastic games, which kind of the trouble, because you got the thing that you got to press down, and you got I love that game. I mean, that was just one of my favorite games. And I was kind of older for the kiddie games that kind of came out at that time, but it also started a whole revolution with the mouse trap and all those like plastic, all those plastic games that came out at that time. So, that was a really interesting chapter because I was like, oh yeah, I never really thought about when those games came out. But I guess would Connect 4 have been in that too? I mean, I know there was Operation, like all the games like that.
Yeah, it was kind of a tricky one because it did have a long sort of debate to say, are they board games? Are they not? They're kind of like board games, but
Right.
you could argue they're kind of a distinct thing of their own, but the story behind them is too good to ignore it. So
Exactly.
I think that's on me a little bit, but they are essentially board games. They've just added some plastic and moving parts. So I guess in a way it's kind of a stepping stone towards video games. So you've gone
Right. I
from
mean,
this
who didn't love Operation? Like, that was a great, operate with the little thing that you'd have to try.
Yeah, I'm terrible at that. It's like, apart from just obviously not having a steady enough hand to do anything like that, it's like I always just jump, even when it's like, oh god,
I don't know, it was like,
stop. It's like, I should be over this. It shouldn't be a problem there.
Right, exactly. So we do start to get into. I'm just looking. Oh yeah, you have a great chapter on Twister. I love that chapter. We'll just let it go. We're running time, so we're just gonna let it go at that. Everybody should read Sex in a Box because it's a great story. But let's get to so Trivial Pursuit. I mean, that hit in the 80s. I'm in high school, so this is like the game ever. I mean, to say that we became addicted to Trivial Pursuit, it was like, should we go to a movie or should we stay home and play Trivial Pursuit? It was that big, and it was something your whole family could play. I mean, we had some tournaments, okay? Trivial Pursuit was huge at that point.
Yeah, it was amazingly big, and it's quite hard sort of looking back. I think if you were born post Trivial Pursuit, it's hard to imagine how big this was. I mean, this was kind of Facebook levels of big. It was like everyone was talking about Trivial Pursuit, and I sort of maybe about 10, something like that, when it hit the UK, and I was like, oh, everyone's really excited about this weird looking board game. I should play it. And they was asking me questions about TV stars in the 50s. So I was like, I can't play this game. It's too hard. But it was enormously successful, and even now, and it just opened up this kind of, I suppose, these more adult party games that are kind of float around, like Articulate and things like that, are still going today and going strong. Taboo, and there's so many of them now. But that's all down to Trivial Pursuit. They didn't exist before that.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember that when we still had DVDs. There was a Trivial Pursuit DVD, but you could play, like, they had decades, all kinds of topics, Harry Potter. I mean, you could really play anything. But I don't know, trivia doesn't ever go away. It was brilliant. And another game that you can play on your phone. I mean, there's trivia games all over on your phone. So it's like, it was another opener that it's like, it'll be forever, I think. Everybody wants to know if they're smart, and you want to feel smart, like all this like useless trivia. You might as well.
It's such a weird time for a game like that to come along. So this was like the height of Pac-Man and Space Invaders, and the whole place was just saying video games are the future. Who wants to know about board games? And Trivial Pursuit comes along and goes, yeah, it's a board game, and we're going to charge you like 4 times the price of a board game for it. And I was like, this is crazy, but it was enormous.
It was enormous. And I remember thinking, okay, maybe someday I'll know the answer to every one of those cards. But every card had how many things? I mean, it would have been impossible. But, at the time, I was like, I will get to know this the more I play, right? But I don't know, because then they started coming out with the different decks, actually. If you played enough, you could get the different decks. So, that was huge. And then, we start getting into what my kids now do, which is video games. And my 14-year-old son is a gamer. So if you listen, you can hear him. He's gaming right now. And I'm telling you, it is a huge community. And to think about where that had to, like how it's evolved. Like now it's a community that he has friends all over the world. He's playing with people all over the world in his gaming. And to think that it all wouldn't have been, except for going back to the board games and how people love a game. What is it about us that, because you have a great chapter on there about what is it about us that wants a good game?
Yeah. Well, I think it's social contact in the end. You know, I mean, so one thing. So I mentioned earlier, go to a little board game club in the town I live in, and didn't know none of us knew each other when we formed it. So you go along, and actually we become friends now. But actually having a game there, it's like, well, you all get involved in something together. And you sort of make a connection through that. Whereas if we just kind of randomly met up in the pub, it's like, how can we keep the conversation going? What should I ask? It's much harder. So board games kind of erase that. They kind of make you all sort of gather in a bit more, and they also do things like make you cooperate together or kind of challenge each other in a safe way. Sort of some of the behaviour you might carry out in Monopoly, if you did that in any other way, like someone might punch you or something. In a board game, that's completely fine. And so I think this is the thing, and we like playing. I think for many years we've always kind of thought, oh, playing is something only children should do, and once we're adults we lose all interest in play. But of course we don't. It's a great way of learning.
Absolutely.
And it's very, I don't know, it's very much part of us, I think.
Well, I was looking through your other books because this is your fourth book, and I love how you find these topics. Okay, feral cities. Okay. I was like, oh my God, I should read that one. I mean, the concept behind, like what kind of animals are we seeing in the city? And then Fizz about soda. Oh, there we go. Feral Cities. Right. I mean, how awesome is that? And then Fizz, well, Feral Cities came out in 2015. Okay, so we're kind of going backwards, but Fizz came out in 2013. And then Replay about video games was 2010. So what are you working on now?
Well, at the moment, I'm actually trying to update Replay. So, unlike board games, where Replay was very much the complete history of video games, was the idea behind it. So, kind of now it's been 7 years, I'm kind of looking at a game, starting to feel a bit out there. So, that's kind of my next project. But I do have some embryonic ideas for another book, which would be completely unrelated to any other topic I've ever written about. Seems to be my style.
Right. Well, no, definitely. I mean, Fizz. I mean, how great is that? I don't know. It's kind of like a trivia thing but you connect it. And I think that's where your journalism comes in, your journalism background, because you can take this one thing and then just tell the whole history with these great stories and make it like so enjoyable to read. I loved every chapter. I read every word of this book. I mean, the stories are amazing. And you know what? I have to go get it because I want to show it again. But since I moved, it's all the way over here. Because you know what? Even the cover of this book so says everything. I mean, it looks like a game board. So, I mean, they did an amazing job with this cover. I love it.
Yeah. No, it was fantastic. I loved it when it came through. It was just like, wow. I'm so glad they found that illustrated.
Yes. So anyway, well, I want to, whatever you figure out what you're going to do next and you get that book out, I want to read it. Okay. Please keep me in touch because I love your writing style and I can't wait to see what you have next.
Thank you.
And everybody, so that you can find a copy of this book, I will have all of Tristan's social media and Amazon link and everything. And I just want to thank you so much. This was so much fun to read and then to talk to you about. It was a great time. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being.
Okay. Have a great day, Tristan. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye. Oh my God, was that interview fun or what? Tristan was amazing. Oh, I see this hair hanging down. Okay, so he was so much fun. You have to get this book. If you love board games and you love history, you will love reading this book. He told so many great stories. And if you made it this far, I just want to thank you because you watched the whole thing and we just couldn't stop talking. There was just so much to talk about. But anyway, if you liked the video, please hit like and please subscribe. And until next time, thank you guys.